Let's go back to one of our top stories. In the last hour, the Conservative government tabled legislation designed to tackle the issue of cyberbullying. The bill would make it a criminal offense to distribute an intimate photograph or video without the consent of the person depicted in it. This comes after a series of high-profile cyberbullying cases. So joining us now for their thoughts on this new bill, Signe Arneson, and she's Associate Director for the Canadian Centre for Child Protection in Winnipeg. Tom Stamtakis is the National President of the Canadian Police Association. He joins us from Ottawa. Thank you both for making time for us today. We wanted to get your thoughts on this new legislation because it focuses on the distribution of a non-consensual distribution of sexual images. Is that good enough, Signe? What do you think of what was announced?
Well, I think it's important that we've brought forward this type of bill because what it acknowledges is the complex world that kids are growing up in today surrounding sexual exploitation combined with technology and bullying. And it's difficult to apply traditional charges in and around child pornography to youth engaged in this activity. So I think this is an important step.
Okay, and Tom, what do you make of what was announced? Does it go far enough?
Oh, I agree. I think this kind of legislation is exactly what's needed today with technology the way it is, and it really is another example of the government introducing legislation that modernizes existing provisions in the criminal code that reflect the challenges that the members that I represent, frontline police officers across the country, the challenges that they face every day while they're trying to protect vulnerable children in our communities across the country.
And what are some of those challenges? I know the CBC's The Fifth Estate did a story on this recently, and one of the challenges apparently is that you need the manpower to sit there and go through the internet and look for these images.
Well, that's a significant challenge. I mean, the bigger challenge, though, is even when we become aware of these instances where kids are being bullied in this manner with this inappropriate use of technology, we're still limited in terms of what we can do. So what we need is legislation that reflects the kind of technology that exists today, that gives us the ability to acquire the information that is necessary in order to successfully prosecute a case, and to create some obligations on people with respect to what they can and can't do when they're using this technology. And that has been a bigger challenge historically when it comes to this kind of offense.
Signe, when you try to take an image off the internet, how difficult is that? Because the Justice Minister was hinting that it is quite difficult to have an image removed.
Well, I think it all depends on the space you're talking about. As it pertains to youth, there are measures you can take. I mean, you can definitely be contacting the content providers saying you're underage, you're in the photograph, you didn't consent to it. Those things are important pieces to be putting in, and for many of the reputable content providers, they're going to take down that type of information, but there are others that won't. And I think at the end of the day, cyberbullying is a very complex issue. It can't be addressed with legislation alone. This is an important step, and certainly it likely will be used, but it requires all of us to get involved and engaged, and that's all the way from the educational system into the mental health system, agencies like ours, as well as police.
Where should we draw the line among our youth? When you say that we should all get involved, where do we draw the line in society?
Well, I think it all depends. Why this is so complex is you have to look at each particular situation on its own merit. You can't apply a general set of rules to all of these cases. So take, for example, trying to compare Rehtaeh Parsons' case with Amanda Todd's. They're very, very different scenarios that have a bunch of different ingredients that feed into it, but certainly both of them are subjected to horrendous cyberbullying. So I think we've got to, at the end of the day, I don't think the goal amongst Canadians is to be arresting a bunch of teens for this activity, but at the same time, what this legislation does is it sends a very strong message to kids that this won't be tolerated, and if adults get involved and they're asked to discontinue the activity, they need to take that very seriously.
Tom, is there anything that's missing in this legislation, anything that you think your officers could benefit from?
I haven't actually had a chance to review the bill yet to see the specifics, and I can tell you that we will be reviewing the details more carefully, and certainly we'll be communicating with the Public Safety Minister and the Justice Minister where we identify areas where we think there might be a need for regulations to support the provisions in the bill.
Okay, we have to leave it there. Thank you both for joining us. Signe Arneson, Associate Director for the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, and Tom Stamatakis, National President of the Canadian Police Association. Thank you.